everyone, and welcome to Backseat Sports. I'm Josh, that's Caleb, and today we got the season predictions. We're going through it. It's finally that time. Football season is right around the corner. We got Big Ten Media Day this week, and we got the coach speak all over the place. And now we finally have a decent feel for these teams heading into the fall. We're doing the full season predictions today, game by game, and we'll see what happens. We have a lot to talk about. Caleb, how you doing?
Man, I'm doing great. Football season is almost upon us again. The sports dead zone is here. It is real.
I know. Nebraska football. Obviously, we're going to be going game by game. So at the start of this video, we're going to be talking about Nebraska, going through some of the expectations we have for this team, obviously. If you haven't seen some of our past videos, we did an offensive and defensive depth chart breakdown. So I highly recommend checking out those videos. It'll have a pretty in-depth breakdown of all of our opinions on player by player across the starting lineup. So good videos to worth checking out for sure. But with that said, we're going to go over kind of our overall thoughts here and then head into the game-by-game prediction. So off the rip, Nebraska. Let's start with the Vegas prediction. Right now, Vegas has us at 7.5 wins. And there's expectations kind of all over the board. Some fans and media have us like right near the top of the Big Ten West. Some have us near the bottom, really all over the place. And that's what we have to kind of sift through today, obviously with changes all over the place.
Yeah, I definitely think that the high odds of us winning 7.5 games is more indicative of our schedule, like you said, than really, our team really improving or bolstering a whole bunch. I mean, again, all the new additions of the coaches and some new players, again, which we address more in those other videos, is exciting. And we'll talk a little bit more about that too.
For sure.
But yeah, I definitely think that's high. But again, our schedule, I mean, going from one of the toughest schedules in the country last year now to definitely one of the easier ones in the Big Ten.
And so you bring in Mark Whipple as the new offensive coordinator, obviously, with his offense at Pittsburgh last year with Kenny Pickett, the Heisman winner. You bring in kind of this pistol formation, lots of play action, lots of vertical passing. And that's kind of a big reason for why they wanted to pair Casey Thompson with his Mark Whipple offense, get that deep ball going. When you pair Mark Whipple as a new offensive coordinator, you bring in Mickey Joseph, a wide receiver coach, new special teams coach, new offensive line coach, Donovan Raiola. So it's all over the board here for this offense, especially. And not to mention, we have 33 new scholarship players on the roster this year, which is just insane, including 14 gained in the portal, 6 most in the Power 5. A total of 8,581 career FBS snaps gained, 10th most in the Power 5. So that's pretty insane. Leading into what is probably deciding Frost's fate at Nebraska this season. So there's a lot of pressure on him. He rekindled play calling, the final say of play calling to Mark Whipple. He did say at press conferences that it's still going to be a collective process with his input involved, but Whipple should be having the final say on some of these play calls. So that'll be a little bit of a change for him as more of the manager this season across the board. I mean, obviously it was a little ugly last year. Set the FBS record with 9 single-digit losses in a season. And like statistically, when it came to expected wins versus actualized wins, Nebraska set the record for least wins versus actualized expected wins off performance last year. And so there's a lot
of numbers to say that it was just a huge heartbreak of a season for all Husker fans. We were
and that was
led through a roller coaster of just emotion. Yeah. Again, just like even thinking back, most fans, I think, saying that we went 3-9 last year for what felt like we were in most every game is really, really shocking. And so, I think to a lot of people, it didn't feel as bad as it felt horrible, but like it was like it was an exciting year, if nothing else.
I mean, even non-Nebraska media was deeming us potentially the best 3-9 team of all time, whatever that means. So it's just depressing more than anything.
Shout out Bussin' with the Boys for starting that trend there.
Exactly. Yeah. So obviously, let's hop into kind of our Nebraska team talks here. I mean, strap in for this video. This is probably going to be a long video going through team by team in these breakdowns, but we have a lot to say the least. So I'll start on the offensive side here with new players coming in. Obviously, talk of the town, Casey Thompson, new starting quarterback. But the biggest news that we haven't had a chance to cover in a video yet was on the offensive line. Norden newly suspended for the season. And
tough.
That is, I mean, talk about a massive loss for Nebraska outside of Cam Jurgens, the guy who played the most snaps that was like effective last year.
Yeah, it really sucks. Hopefully Williams can fill in that role for us. We don't have a ton of depth at that position anyway.
No. I mean, last season, he was our third highest rated offensive lineman behind Cam Jurgens, Teddy Prohaska, except he played like 4 times more snaps than Prohaska because Prohaska got hurt. So,
yeah,
you could argue he was our second best offensive lineman last year, and then you lose him going into this year with there's already so many question marks. That's as tough as it gets. So basically everything on the offense is really pretty consistent and locked in outside of the offensive line. But
yeah.
I mean, running back depth, you got to feel good about that. I mean, so many options there.
The addition of, Grant and, Yant looking good last year, Ramir Jobson, and just so many other reliable names. You feel good about the running back core coming into next year. And hopefully, again, one of those guys has a great camp, shows some great upside, and really breaks out and has a nice season for us. And again, yeah, Casey Thompson, the addition of him is exciting. Omar Manning's coming back, Trey Palmer, and the addition of Mickey Joseph. Everybody's excited about the wide receiver core and just pretty excited looking forward. And then you get Travis Vokalek too, who again had a good season. It's a big tight end for us, a big target that again is going to be really useful in the passing game.
I mean, a leader, one of the guys that came to the media days with Frost. And I think everyone expects him, if he can stay healthy. That's the thing. Last year, he couldn't stay healthy.
Yeah.
But when he was on the field, he was a massive playmaker. And I think he's one of those guys that when the pressure's on, pressure's getting to Casey Thompson, hopefully Vokalek will be out there as an outlet towards the sidelines. And we know Casey Thompson has arm strength, and we saw him make some great passes towards the sidelines last year, utilizing the arm strength. So that's probably something you need to look for this year for sure. Obviously, the weakness and the X factor this year is going to be pass protection. And one of the scariest stats, the combined scariest stats, like last year, we were dead last in the Power 5 in pass protection.
Dead last.
And that's losing our 2 best pass blockers in Cam Jurgens and Norton Newley. Last year, Casey Thompson at Texas had the 6th worst turnover-worthy play rate while under pressure in the Power 5. And you're heading into a scary situation in Nebraska where that could be the case a lot. And from the reports, it doesn't sound like he's that mobile, which was what bailed Adrian Martinez out every other snap last year.
Hopefully Raiola can come fix that around. Again, we have a new offensive line coach this year. But again, it's really been one of the Achilles heels of Scott Frost his whole tenure here.
Yeah, so I think it's going to kind of require Mark Whipple to get creative here with ways to relieve that pressure, create outlets for Casey Thompson. Hopefully you have a big body in the backfield like Jack Yant to take some of that pressure off. Hopefully you expect Jack Yant to capitalize and make the right plays. That was somewhat of a problem last year at times. And so it just kind of depends on who you trust back there in pass protection. That's what gets interesting to me. All right, let's hop on the defensive side. Obviously, so many new defensive pieces because there were so many players leaving. So we have a lot of interesting players to talk about here. At defensive tackle, you got new faces like Stephen Wynn, Devin Drew coming in. Obviously, linebacker / defensive end, you got O'Shawn Mathis. And then you've got Deshaun Singleton, Tommy Hills, just some great players there. How are we feeling about this defense? What are the X factors you feel like? What are your expectations for this defense heading into the year?
A lot of people have talked about how a lot of our defense rests on Garrett Nelson's shoulders of how good of a pass rusher he can be.
Yep.
I mean, he's a super fun guy and a really fun personality on the team. Hopefully he can make that jump. The problem is he's pretty one-dimensional and he's good at pass rushing, but he's not good at much else on the football. Not a great tackler on the other side. So he needs to really still develop around a long ways. And then the question is, how good is O'Shawn Mathis? We a lot to get this guy, but how good is he going to be?
Are we going to get 2020 O'Shawn Mathis, or we're going to get 2021 O'Shawn Mathis? That was contributed for a reason why he wanted to transfer with the new coaches coming in at TCU. So, I mean, hopefully we get the elite O'Shawn Mathis that's a fringe NFL player that has a chance to get drafted. That type of O'Shawn Mathis. If we do, then suddenly this gets really interesting, pairing Garrett Nelson, O'Shawn Mathis, and hopefully the development of Caleb Tanner as well to rotate in and keep them fresh. And then suddenly our pass rush becomes pretty interesting season long.
Yeah, and then, just the other X factor with the defense is now replacing JoJo. Again, he was kind of the reason that we could really play a 3-4 because he was just so good at everything. It's an absolute Band-Aid for our defense. It's going to take an army, I think, to replace that. Hopefully, Isaac Gifford can do a good job. The switching to a 4-3 will help. Now we'll have less linebackers, which is good because our linebacking core, again, outside of him, really has been a weakness. Reimer's okay at pass coverage, but, not really great at, getting tackles for loss, stopping the run. Henrich the same way. So, again, our linebacking core just has that many question marks. Like you said, hopefully Caleb Tanner can really make the jump. He looks athletic. He looks the part. But again, we just need that tackling improvement from all of our linebackers. Again, for all of us. And then also we're replacing Cam Taylor-Britt. Again, a second round draft pick in the NFL who was like, that's no small feat again.
Right now we're relying on a guy like Tommy Hill to do that transfer from ASU, and he's been hyped. It seems like he could be very solid. I think it's logical to assume that we'll have a slight decline in performance, at least defensively. So the question comes down to how good can this pass rush be? Because last year it was not good. But our defense
hasn't been good under Scott Frost whatsoever.
Right. So the question is can we become an actually elite or, very respectable pass rush? Because if that's the case, then suddenly that just changes our defensive style. And then maybe we're just as good of a defense as last year, just in a completely different way.
Again, it's just hard in another year for like Garrett Nelson really to make another jump. I think it's possible, even though, he's been in the program long enough that hopefully it can happen again.
How I see it is with Devin Drew and Stephen Wynn coming in at D tackle, running more of a 4-3 base this year with multiple fronts. We're going to have a slight improvement in our pass rush at least. You still have Ty Robinson there. So it's at least a wash at D tackle, if not an improvement, I think. At D end, you definitely have an improvement. That's kind of for me, is like maybe you see a slight decline in secondary play, but you have a huge increase in pass rush and front seven play.
Yeah, I definitely think it will be a decline. I don't think we'll be as good as a
there are obviously a lot of ifs, and that's the thing with this team is that you just have if after if.
If one of the JUCO players hits, or one of the transfer players hits, then we're looking at this very differently.
Right. If one of them's Levante David, or if one of them's like a guy like that, then suddenly you're like, oh my, like this defense is insane.
Is really good.
So it's like, so special teams obviously though should be, in my opinion, improve significantly.
100%.
With Brian Buschini coming in, punting transfer from Montana, and then you have Timmy Bleakroad coming in from Furman, and the 5-star quote unquote freshman kicker Charlie Weinrich coming in as well, but more than likely Bleakroad will be the starting kicker.
And that was probably the difference from a few wins last year, was just better punting, better
kicking.
Just kicking. Yeah, just kicking field goals. That was the last straw that broke the camel's back. It felt like a ton of times.
It was literally the difference in the MSU game. So
yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of where Nebraska's at. It's an interesting spot, and like I said, it's if after if after if. And that's what makes them unbelievably difficult to predict. And that's why this video is going to be so much fun. So there is one thing that we wanted to go over, some interesting, maybe sad trends that we found before we get into the predictions.
Yeah, when you're predicting.
So just some trends that came up when you look through PFF and you look through all these different rankings and stats websites that were, let's just say, tough. So let's get our tiers out before we get the predictions in and go through these breakdowns. Let's start it off. Get the tiers rolling. Since 2018, Scott Frost in Nebraska is 0-14 versus ranked opponents, which is tied with Rutgers as worst in the Big Ten.
Nebraska is 2-18 as an underdog, worst in the Big Ten since the start of 2018.
We are 4-16 on the road, which is worse in the Big Ten since 2018.
We are 3-4 as the away favorite, dead last in the Big Ten since 2018.
That one hurts a lot. We are 1-12 as the away underdog, dead last in the Big Ten.
We are 13-11 as the favorite in any game, second worst in the Big Ten since the start of 2018.
Probably the weirdest one is that we are 0-7 after a bye week, dead last in the Big Ten since the start of 2018. Like, what? What is happening? I was just scrolling through these things, like these rankings, like mind blown. Time after time, I thought we have to mention these in the video. These are insane stats. Without further ado, hopefully I edited this down a little bit so it wasn't as long as we took here. Week 1, we played Northwestern in Dublin, Ireland. Last year, obviously, Northwestern was 3-9, 1-8 in the Big Ten. It was a tough season for Northwestern. We smoked them last year. Obviously, by
joyous
50
game, best
points.
game of the season.
Oh, it was without a doubt the best game of the season. Yeah, not close at all. 56-7 last year. What's crazy is that the over-under is actually already out for this game because the game is like T-minus 1 month away. We're currently 12.5-point favorites for this game, which is insane. Over under 15.5 points. We'll make an official Northwestern predictions video here in a few weeks. Of course. So be on the lookout for that. But they're an interesting program, obviously. They have a lot to work through in this year. How do you feel about this game? I mean, I'm feeling fairly confident.
You know, again, just the first game of the season under Scott Frost has felt odd. I mean, one got canceled. We have lost some stunners. It's just been
Illinois last year.
They were 1-8 in the Big Ten with their best win coming to Rutgers last season, a 21-7 win. But again, they just haven't added enough pieces back. They lost so much on defense.
It's going to be more of the same with them. It's going to be they have to run the ball, and then hopefully they have a decent defense. But they lost pieces, and I would say their defense could have gotten worse. It's possible it did, which is if
crazy.
that's the case, that's tough. But their over-under is 4.5 wins in Vegas right now. I have us winning probably pretty big here, like 20 plus points. I think we blow them out again.
I think it'll be a close win just because it'll be an ugly game just because we're sloppy.
Hangovers.
It's in Ireland, and just, again, it feels like weird things happen under the Scott Frost era. It's just not normal always. I guess in Ireland is not normal. Again, I think we'll win, but if we lost this game, I would not be surprised.
It's the most pivotal game of the season because if you lose that game, if you lose that game, this season starts looking really dark. Okay, so let's not take too much time on the next two games here. It's North Dakota and Georgia Southern. I mean, since we are going to be taking our sweet time on probably some of these other ones, but more than likely, we should be winning these games. I mean, there's not really any reason why we shouldn't. North Dakota, Georgia Southern. I think we're going to both take those pretty quickly as wins in Memorial Stadium and rock and roll from there. So that leads us to the game. Obviously, week 4, Oklahoma, the one that everybody has circled this year. It's going to be as fun of a game as you can remember. Obviously, Oklahoma was very good last year, 11-2, 7-2 in the Big 12. But, it was a weird year, and we played them really close last year. Obviously, 23-16 in Norman. And then heading into this year, Vegas has them at a 9.5, but they got a whole new situation, obviously. You're bringing
what a tumultuous offseason for
unbelievable.
Oklahoma.
I mean,
Lincoln Riley leaving was as big a shock as I've seen in college football in recent memory.
Right. And then you lose both of your incredible Heisman potential quarterbacks. So you have one going to USC, you have one going to South Carolina, and now you bring in Dillon Gabriel, which is plenty of past connections here with UCF. And obviously, Brent Venables is their new head coach, Clemson's former defensive coordinator, coming in with all of his connections at Oklahoma. So it's interesting. They're bringing in a new offensive coordinator as well, Jeff Lebby. And Jeff Lebby was hired at UCF after Frost left as UCF's quarterback coach and passing game coordinator, which means he coached Dillon Gabriel there, which is why that connection ended up working out for Gabriel to come to Oklahoma. So this is just a weird team to predict. They obviously have so many players who left. I mean, talent guys like Rattler, Caleb Williams, Mario Williams, the incredibly athletic, talented wide receiver who torched us a few plays last year. He left to USC as well. It's interesting. You have guys like Nick Benito, Brian Asamoah, Isaiah Thomas, all leaving on the defense as well. But they brought in a lot of new talent. 13 transfers coming in. How do you feel about this Oklahoma team?
Yeah, I mean, Mims is going to be really scary again. He absolutely cooked us last year. And they brought in a ton of other fun guys too. And they returned Redmond, who had the best pressure rate in the Power 5 last year. So they still have a ton of talent, as Oklahoma does. Venables is going to be a much more defensive-minded coach. So it's going to be a really interesting dichotomy.
I mean, man, the question is that do they have the defensive talent to do what Venables wants to do? I mean, they lost a lot of talented players. When you lose guys like Nick Benito, Brian Asamoah, Isaiah Thomas, that you don't just replace those guys normally. But again, they are Oklahoma. They did bring in a lot of players, and they had a lot of very impressive transfers coming in. So it's hard to say. I mean, I still think they're going to be a very good team, probably top 10 type team when we play them.
If it was a night game, again, I'd feel more interested. The good news is Oklahoma really doesn't see a test until us. We'll be like the first real football team.
Exactly.
We'll already have a conference game under our belt.
They have UTEP and Kent State before us, and so we'll be their first Power 5 game. We'll be their first road game. So with a new head coach, with a new quarterback, with a lot of new pieces, that could play to our advantage.
If we were going to catch them, it'd be here. I'm going to pick us to lose. But again, I mean, I'm hopeful that, maybe going into this season, my mind has changed and, we can win this game. But right now, I'll call it a loss.
This is the game. I mean, like, if Frost wants to make the statement that I'm here to stay, I'm a Nebraska head coach, you have to win this game. I mean, like, it feels that way, at least when it comes to the identity, the type of tone that would set for this
the rest
season.
Of the season.
Oh my word, because suddenly you look at this schedule and you're like, we just beat Oklahoma. I mean, we could be undefeated going into Minnesota. Like, literally, that's possible if you beat Oklahoma here. I'm not confident enough to say our team's there. I mean, it's just so hard to know. Do I think that Casey Thompson's going to be a more clutch quarterback? And if you put him in the situations that Adrian Martinez was in last year in the fourth quarter on those game-winning drives, does he perform better than Adrian Martinez? I would say absolutely, 100% guaranteed. The question is Adrian Martinez or Casey Thompson the better quarterback in the first, second, and third quarter? It's hard to say right now. We don't really know. And that really could depend on our offensive line play again. So all of these things are going to play into factors in my future predictions. But I'm going to go with an early season close loss here to Oklahoma as much as I want to pick us to win this game. Now, good news is into week 5, we're heading into an Indiana game. And they didn't win a Big Ten game last year. They went 2-10 overall. Their only really decent win coming in was like a blowout against Idaho. So they have a 4.5 over-under this year from Vegas.
0.7% chance to win the Big Ten according to PFF. Tough. They lost Michael Penix. He transferred to Washington, which is just going to be an exciting team to see next year. They've really lost a lot.
They're only returning 56% of production on both sides of the ball, which is one of the worst in the Big Ten. The question mark for them is that they're bringing in Missouri transfer Connor Balazak as their starting quarterback this year. So, questions there when it comes to how he performs in the new system.
Yeah, their offense is definitely going to be the question mark. The good news is their secondary is good with Tywan Mullen and Jalen Williams.
The good news?
Good. Well, not for us. For them. They had 8 interceptions, forced 37 incompletions, 33 pass stops. So they are going to be good.
Yeah, they were highly rated.
I just don't think Indiana has enough firepower, in my opinion. I like that it's at home for us.
I think we win this game. I'm a little bit nervous, though, as a trap game after the high of Oklahoma.
If we were to win.
Well, especially if we won. But I'm going to go with a solid, 10-ish point win here. I think I feel pretty good about that.
I'm really concerned about how many points we're going to score. I think we win this game, but it'd be, I think we're going to win close if we're going to win.
Interesting. Okay. So now this is an interesting game. I think that's one that I think fans are underestimating a little bit here. And that's at Rutgers in week 6 last year. They were 5-8, 2-7 in the Big Ten. And
2 more wins than us.
What's interesting is they blew out Indiana 38-3. This year they only have a 4.5 win over under. So that's interesting. But one thing is interesting from PFF in their preseason power rankings had them at 78. That's fairly respectable considering PFF only had us at 60th. And this is heading into Greg Schiano's second season
year
as Rutgers head coach. And we saw what he did with his team back in the day when he was coaching Rutgers. They had NFL talent all over the board, like Ray Rice, the McCourty twins, and a handful of other players as well. The biggest X factor for this Rutgers team is at quarterback. The media in Rutgers, I was reading through a bunch of their stuff, was talking about the debate between Gavin Wimsatt, who's the highest rated recruit in Rutgers history, a 4-star quarterback who did not beat out Noah Vedral last season in Wimsatt's freshman season, but a lot of people think they hope he starts this year over him to provide that kind of upside. And they think if he does, there's a chance his team could be a real surprise.
They pushed Michigan to the brink in overtime last season. Again, Big Ten champion Michigan. So Rutgers had plenty of good games this last season. They're an exciting team. And I'm definitely very nervous about them. So I think we lose this game. Again, Nebraska is 3-4 on the road as away favorites. So
and we'll probably be a favorite in this game. What's the narrative argument for you there when it comes to matchups? I mean, obviously, they're probably best part of their teams, their cornerbacks here. Max Melton and Kassan Abraham, both very well rated inside the Big Ten when it comes to Big Ten corners last year. And Kassan Abraham didn't surrender a touchdown in 13 games. He was second among outside corners in yards per coverage snap allowed in the Power 5. They have some talent there. And then again, offensively, it's just kind of a bunch of question marks. But I mean, I just think if Noah Vedral's their quarterback, this team's going to suck. They're just going to be so average.
I mean, yeah, they were last in the Power 5 in passing efficiency, but they still found a way. And again, their defense can create turnovers, and I think we're going to be sloppy. Again, I just really don't think that Nebraska is going to be able to put a lot of points on the board. Our offensive line isn't good, but I think there's a lot of new pieces and a new system. I just don't think that our offense under a new, offensive coordinator, I don't think we're going to be able to run this. It's not going to be some well-oiled machine. I think their turnovers are still going to be very likely, and just in a bloodbath game, I think Greg Schiano's the better coach, the more experienced coach, and so I think that Nebraska will probably lose this one. And if it's not this one, it's some other away game, that maybe we shouldn't lose.
I mean, even last year though, like obviously our offensive line was literally the worst pass protection offensive line in the country. We were throwing Turner Corcoran out there, who was the lowest rated tackle in the FBS out of like 500.
But now it's like Casey
PFF.
Thompson isn't like as much of a dual threat quarterback now, though.
I know. But A, we have way more depth at running back than we did last year. B,
I don't think it's way more. I mean, we added.
I would say it's way more talented.
It's just we just added Grant.
I think Grant might be the best running back we have. And last year, we were still let's say for example, against teams that did not have good pass rushes, which the irony is last year, the debate was the only maybe one that we played that didn't have a elite pass rusher was Northwestern, and we put up 56 points on them. We were facing a literal top 2 or 3 NFL round draft pick in like 8 of our 12 games on the front 4 for that opposing team, like Iowa, or like at least in the linebacking core was a pass rusher like Iowa, Wisconsin, Ohio State, Purdue with Karlaftis, and then of course Michigan State, Oklahoma. Like there was legit pass rushers on almost every single team we played.
Yeah, again, obviously our schedule was a lot tougher, but again, you take away our best offensive lineman draft pick that we had, now put in Hickson
and Newley.
And now we lose Newley. Like our offensive line is going to be even worse, and we are worse in the Power 5, and it's probably going to be even bleaker. And again, Greg Schiano is a defensive-minded head coach with a second year, with more time to guys, with guys that he's recruited. We don't know how his recruiting class is going to pan out, how his returning guys, like 7 games in, once we do this predictions video, I'm sure that there'll be someone who is at least solid on the pass rush.
All I'll say is that Prohaska, when he played, was actually very, very good. And you bring him back if he's healthy for the whole season,
excited for Prohaska,
then suddenly
obviously.
That's really exciting. And then Benhart in the second half of the year was at least okay. Like in the first half of the year, he was
okay in the rush. He was okay in the rush.
No, in pass protection in the second half of the year, he was okay. In the first half, he was awful. And he was down there with Turner Corcoran. But in the second half, he was respectable. Like, relative. But, so I think there's a world where he can take a step forward. He's also very young.
Prohaska and Newley on, too. That, the Prohaska and Newley also helped a lot cover.
Well, then Prohaska got hurt, and that's when he went back to left tackle. I don't know. I think that there's a world where Benhart's actually a lot better this year.
But I just don't think it's going to be
I think
enough.
we win this Rutgers game in a close one, probably like a 3 to 6 point type win, something that is a little bit scary for us. I think we pull it out. We'll be fine. So this Purdue game is also one of the other ones you have to circle on this schedule. Obviously, it's at Purdue, and last year they were a very good team. I mean, they were 9-4 last year. They had some huge wins, like beating a top 5 Iowa. They beat us 28-23. They beat
Michigan
MSU
State.
40-29. And obviously, Frost right now at this point is 1-3 versus Purdue, with his only one coming in 2019. There's some interesting stuff here. Vegas has them going at 7.5 wins, so the same as us. PFF has them power ranked 35th, so a very respectable power rank from PFF. Obviously, they lost a lot of talent. I mean, when you lose guys like David Bell and George Karlaftis, I mean, that's legit NFL talent gone from this team. And this is Purdue, a team that's not just going to be able to replace that with a snap of a finger.
Yeah, it's not Oklahoma.
The guy, though, is Aiden O'Connell, obviously.
Yeah, he had an insane season last year. He looked so good, especially the second half of the season.
Yeah.
Like, he turned it on. Again, PFF thinks he's like a top 15 quarterback.
They had him ranked, I think, 15th out of all quarterbacks returning this year.
Yeah. That's just
so last year he had a Power 5 leading 7.8% big time throw rate. So his throwing downfield was incredible. And he was but again, when you lose David Bell and Milton Wright, 2 very good players, especially obviously David Bell, that's going to affect you. And it's not obvious who they're going to replace him with. They brought in some transfers, some guys from Iowa, a few other guys as well. But it's like they don't have an obvious number 1 now. So it's like
Payne Durham's going to be probably their number one target, the tight end. Cooked us last year at different intervals.
I'm just not sure exactly where the rest of this production on the offensive side comes from. I'm not as scared of them as I think others might be. By this time, we're in week 7. This team's going to start figuring things out. I like Nebraska as this season goes along. The irony is that the longer we go, the tougher our schedule gets. I'm going to take us in a close win here on the road in Purdue, and Scott Frost gets his second win against Purdue.
Again, I could definitely see it happening. Purdue's a definite coin flip team, but I do see us losing. Again, we're on the road. We're just so bad on the road. The only, the counter argument is Purdue's not good as a home favorite. They're the only team worse than us. They're 5-8. So that's kind of exciting. And again, Purdue's the one team, maybe even less than Northwestern, I feel scared of, because again, their offense, they're not a super defensive team. So I think that again, besides Karlaftis last year, they're not really that's not what they're known for. They're known for good quarterbacks and good offensive weapons. And I can trust Scott Frost more, but in an offensive barn burner, again, because that's more his style too, than I can in a defensive slugfest.
I'm just not, like I said, I'm just not convinced that this offense is going to be what people think it's going to be. I mean, I get Aiden O'Connell's a solid player and they're going to have a respectable offensive line, but man, they were dead last in the Power 5 in rushing efficiency last year.
Oh, they were so bad.
And there's not any reason to really believe it's going to get any better. So it's I just think they're going to be incredibly one-dimensional.
We played them,
and you lose David Bell, Milton Wright.
We couldn't stop their run.
So that's why I think we're going to win this game. I'm a little bit surprised you have us losing both to Rutgers and Purdue. I feel like one of those, at least one of those is winnable.
Oh, I think they're both winnable. The thing is, again, Nebraska football in the last 4 years.
Do not trust this team whatsoever.
Well, again, at what point can I? Scott Frost's most wins he's had is 5. We won 3 last year, and we've won 4. We've only had losing seasons. Teams that make sense on paper for Nebraska to beat, we just don't. And it's just as hard as it is to quantify and pick it, because it looks like Nebraska should win. The stark reality is we don't.
Obviously, and we picking us to lose against Illinois would have been looked dumb as hell last year, and then
it happens.
So I get it, but the first game of the year against
Purdue is not Northwest, and Purdue is not Illinois last year too. Aiden O'Connell is a good quarterback.
To be fair, Purdue, Illinois did beat Penn State on the road last year, which we're about to talk about Illinois. But I guess we'll just go right into it. Illinois is our next game. They went 5-7 last year, 4-5 in the Big Ten. Obviously, their huge win was the on-the-road win against Penn State in the unbelievable 9 overtime game.
What a game.
They beat us last year 30-22 in week 1.
And
obviously, what I was going to say is that the upset, though it should never happen, there's logic behind it because it's Brett Bielema's first game. You really don't know what to expect with this team. And us, we're a sloppy young team in the first week of the season. Narrative makes sense for why we lost the game. So I feel very confident we're going to come out here and at least I think we could smoke them.
Again, the only thing is I think Chase Brown is a real talent. And I think he'll be tough to stop next year. Again,
Chase Brown's the guy.
As he gets older. And so that's the only thing that worries me. I too think that we will beat Illinois. I think we can score more points.
What's crazy is that PFF's power ranking has them at 61st, right behind us. Even though Vegas has them at 4.5 wins, PFF projects them for 6 wins.
Yeah, they're a good team, and we knew even before the game that Brett Bielema is a good Big Ten coach, and he would be on the up and up. And so this year is going to be a tougher game than it was last year. Again, his systems are going to be implemented more. He's getting more of his guys, and again, Chase Brown, Brett Bielema with a one running back system is already what he wants, what he does in the Big Ten. And, he was a 3rd team All Big Ten player this year. I think he could be a 2nd Big Ten team player this year. Yeah. So I think we win, but it's a close game. And if you switch that we beat Purdue and we lose to Illinois, I wouldn't be shocked.
Like you said, Jake Hansen defensively finally gone. Chase Brown's obviously the guy, like you said, 5.7 yards per carry on non-perfectly blocked runs, which is top 5 in the FBS. That's insane. He's really
good.
impressive.
He's good.
And he torched us 2 years ago, 3. He's been here forever. And then Isaiah Williams, obviously the number 1, who he is unbelievably athletic, QB turned wide receiver. He's dangerous in the flats and in open space. So they have weapons on offense. This could be a sneaky shootout game. Like this could be like a 40-38 type game, like a sneaky, insane one. So I have us winning in a pretty high scoring game here, but I think we can handily win like by 10 or so.
And I just don't think Nebraska is going to have a high octane offense this season. So I think if we're winning games, we're holding our opponents to around 21, 22 points, and we're scoring about 28.
I just think, again, like there's going to be games where we hit multiple deep touchdowns. I mean, we have the personnel for it. We have Omar Manning, we have Trey Palmer, we have Alante Brown. Like with a guy who prefers to throw the ball downfield against teams that don't have a dominant pass rush, where there's going to be plays where he has time to throw the ball downfield. There's going to be moments where we connect on those lottery homers and suddenly we have like 3 60, 70-yard touchdowns and we're like, holy crap, like what's happening? Like, and that could be one of these games.
But I think that, again, with our offensive line inconsistency, we're also with the same, we could be really boom or bust, which Scott Frost's offense has looked a lot like. If we're not getting in the end zone on those big plays, we can easily stall out. Now, luckily, we have a better field goal kicker. We're adding some more points to that, hopefully. But it's dangerous.
But geez, even last year, Adrian Martinez was hitting Samari Torre on big touchdowns. That even happened. And Adrian generally can't throw the ball downfield at all. Now, this is the stretch here. Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin, Iowa to end the season. Talk about a gauntlet here in the Big Ten for us in the West. Minnesota.
Yeah.
9-4 last season with what seemed like a terrible team, and they somehow pulled out 9 wins with injuries. Like every running back they threw out there, they were literally the 49ers of the Big West, or of the West Division in the Big Ten. Every running back they threw out there was getting hurt, but they beat us obviously 30-23. They had some big wins like against Wisconsin last year, and again another team that Frost has just continued to struggle against. 1-3 versus Minnesota, with the only win coming in 2018, thanks to Vina Zigbo. So.
Overall,
he won the
first year of PJ. Yeah, won the first year of the PJ Fleck, Scott Frost era. But again, since then, PJ Fleck's won the past 3 seasons. And again, it's been pretty convincing. Obviously, the 2020 COVID season, I think, is the most heartbreaking loss. One of the most heartbreaking losses, where they had like 35 players out and then we still lose.
Unbelievable. At home. What's interesting about this Minnesota team is that Kirk Soraka, their offensive coordinator, who was there back in 2019 in their unbelievable season, who left to go to Penn State in West Virginia, is actually returned this year. And not only that, speaking of returning, they have 4 offensive 6th-year seniors: Tanner Morgan, Chris Ottman-Bell, Mo Ibrahim after his Achilles injury last year, and John Michael Smits, their center, are all returning. Mo Ibrahim's maybe the most interesting player because, I mean, he was looking like a 2nd-round draft pick, potentially one of the top 3 running backs in the class, like right up there with Breece Hall in college football. And then he tore his Achilles, which we know as for running backs, that's like the death sentence for running back careers. We'll see how good he can be, but we know how good Chris Ottman-Bell is. We know how good Tanner Morgan has been in the past, and how good their offensive line normally has been, except they're only returning 1 starter on the offensive line, which is their center. How do you feel about this team?
Yeah. Again, just they'll be consistently good. It seems like every year they find one big weakness in Nebraska and they just keep exploiting it over and over and over again. They find a play that works, and they just seems like they just
There's no more infuriating team to watch play us than Minnesota.
No, and I hope, that Mo Ibrahim really can bounce back to be the player he was. Obviously not for Nebraska's sake, but just for him, because he was such an exciting player. Yeah, Tanner Morgan, 38th ranked QB by PFF. Again, he had that insane, the year that Minnesota won 10 games into like 2019. And then it's been kind of a slow D grade, not as good. He was like the highest completed percentage in the whole country, was higher than Joe Burrow on completion percentage. Everybody was like, oh my goodness, Tanner Morgan's going to be insane. And it's really just kind of hasn't been the same since, kind of been a slow decline. So, again, I just think they'll be consistent. They're well coached. They don't make a lot of mistakes. They don't turn the ball over. And that's just kind of the problem. And again, they're just a good Big Ten team. That's how Big Ten plays football. And I mean, I see us losing pretty handily to Minnesota.
I mean, I truly believe this game is incredibly winnable. Like, I mean, we're in Lincoln. Obviously, that's the biggest X factor. We've seen our differences with how we play Minnesota in Lincoln versus in Minneapolis. It's generally a pretty big difference. How good is their offensive line going to be? They're bringing in transfers to patch that thing up, grad transfers to patch up the offensive line. They brought in 2 of them, I think, that are expected to start. What's this defense going to look like? They lost a lot of guys. It wasn't great last year, but PFF likes them a lot. PFF has them as power ranked 19th with 8.1 projected wins. At this point, the biggest X factor is probably Scott Frost versus PJ Fleck, just straight up in the head-to-head coaching ability. It seems like Fleck has a better handle on the situation right now, and we've been exposed the last 3 years. So I'm going to take us in a really close loss, but man, there's nothing more than wanting us to win this game here at home. If for Frost's sake, if Frost was to keep his job, in my mind, this is kind of like a must-win game. Up next is a tough one. I mean, it's at Michigan in the Big House. Obviously, Michigan was unbelievable last year, beating even Ohio State. Who's Michigan? Were they good? I can't remember. Barely against Nebraska, though. We nearly took them out. It was as close as it gets, 32-29. We had them in our grasp, and then we lost it.
Yeah, that was the best. That was the best game of the season. I mean, the stadium was so loud. Walking away with an L on that one just hurts so bad because that game was so much fun. I mean, the turnover, the fourth quarter, the red light show where we got the fire, everybody's going insane. Yep. The Michigan bench starts going insane. Like there was almost a fight breaking out before the fourth quarter. It was just an electric atmosphere. And then to lose that one, that just stunk so bad.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be tough. Obviously, they are expected to be great again. Vegas 9.5 wins. PFF has them ranked 5th, 9.1 projected wins. Overall, I mean, obviously you lose guys like Aiden Hutchinson, David Ajabo, not easy just to replace those guys. You lose Hassan Haskins, but Blake Corum is still there. Cade McNamara should be the starter, but it was not a guarantee. I mean, Jim Harbaugh said JJ McCarthy, who's a redshirt freshman, there will be a competition. He has a chance to beat him out. So, there's possible that could be a situation there. But they're returning 12 all Big Ten performers from 2021. I mean, I don't want to go spend too much more time here. I think we're going to be in trouble here with their pass rush, their ability to get to the quarterback. This could be a game where we get a little bit exposed. I'm probably see us as a double-digit loss here in the Big House.
I mean, do we both agree this is the toughest game that we play this season?
Oh, it's by far. It's not even close.
By far. Yeah. I agree. Yeah. Big
so
loss.
A pretty big loss here in the Big House. So the last 2 big games here, obviously, at home versus Wisconsin. Last year, Wisconsin 9-4, 6-3 in the Big Ten. They had a big win last year versus Iowa, 27-7. Obviously, they beat us in another one-score loss, 35-28. Frost has not beat Wisconsin yet. Is this the year? Vegas has him at 8.5 over/under. PFF has him at 18th power ranked nationally and 7.3 win total. The PFF's down on all Wisconsin because of their opinion on Graham Mertz. Thoughts on this team?
I mean, Graham Mertz is our saving grace. He had so much hype. Remember, Patrick Mahomes tweeted about him
after the first
week. Game 1, and then just never been even close to the same since. Braylon Allen, though, on the other hand, has absolutely.
Wait, are you telling me Wisconsin has a good running back and has good linebackers?
I'm shot. You shot.
No,
and good O-line and a good O-line.
That's impossible, man. You gotta be lying.
It's flipped on its head this year.
Wow.
Braylon Allen, 3rd highest
We're in the
graded
upside
freshman
down
in the country. Braylon Allen is really, really good. He will be a problem. And so will their offensive line. Again, we all as Husker fans know the drill. They push us around. They run for a bunch of yards. It's a close game. We do something dumb.
They led the Big Ten in pressure rate last year, and they returned basically all their best pass rushers. That's what scares me. And that's why I just don't like our odds in this game. I mean, they were top 5 in both pressure rate, or Herbig was both top 5 in pressure rate at 20.7% and battle win rate at 26.4% in the Power 5.
Benton is good too.
Insane.
They'll create some problems for our offensive line.
There's opportunity here if we force turnovers. That's our only hope. I think.
Wisconsin is so beatable when they turn the ball over. I mean, we've seen
Notre Dame. They got blown out by Notre Dame last year because of that.
Yeah, I mean, any team if they aren't winning the possession, the field, winning the field battle of punts, and they're not getting easy field goal and touchdown opportunities with winning the field battle, and we're getting turnovers. It can happen. I mean, you think back to Nebraska's best chances last year. 2018 too, Scott Frost's first year where it was close until the kick return for a touchdown. Nebraska's had its chances against Wisconsin.
Oh, yeah.
If you turn it all over.
Time and time again. So I'm going to take us in another devastatingly close loss. But
about the same.
Man, it's so winnable. It is. It truly is at home. Another Iowa game here to end off the season where on paper it's so winnable. But statistically, it's just nothing goes our way here.
Winnable is your word of this video.
It's the narrative of the season. I mean, like at Iowa
sound like Scott
last
Frost.
year. Oh yeah, well it's just a culture problem. Come on, man. Like 2021, 10-4, 7-2 in the Big Ten. Best win versus Penn State. Beat us 28-21. Obviously, Frost has yet to beat Iowa. The biggest thing is that Iowa is 19-2 as home favorites since 2018, which is the second best in the Big Ten behind Ohio State. We are 1-12 as away underdogs since 2018, which is the worst in the Big Ten. Just that stat alone is pretty convincing and scares me a lot. Like, again, is Iowa going to be great this year? I mean, I'm not convinced they're going to be great. Like, PFS has them only at a projected win total of 6.9. Nice. But like, they have a power ranking of only 22nd. Like, this is doable. And like, what? I mean, when they got a quarterback like that, when Spencer Petras is their quarterback, it's always winnable.
Man. Spencer Petras makes me so happy
Big
that he's
fan.
Iowa's quarterbacks. If we win, I might buy a Spencer Petras jersey, give him some
if he throws like 3 picks.
Yeah, if he throws 3 picks and we win, maybe we should all donate
benched.
to buy Spencer Petras jerseys.
Yeah.
That'd be amazing.
I mean, more likely if he threw like 2 picks, Alex Padilla could come in, and who knows? Alex Padilla could be the starter again by the time we play them at this point.
It's true.
Last year, the receiving corps was ranked as one of the worst in the Power 5, and like they're not really returning too much. Their only hope is that Isaac Bruce's son, Arlen Bruce, breaks out as a incredible player, which is possible.
Keenan Johnson will get older. From Nebraska native
That's
himself.
true.
He'll be a sophomore, so he'll probably, I'd assume, step up a little bit. He had some big plays as a true freshman.
But obviously, tight end Sam Laporte is probably their only reliable playmaker that we know of so far in their offense. So it's like their offense could be absolutely terrible. Like, again, like it could be horrible. It's very possible. But defensively, with Riley Moss coming in, who was fantastic last year. And, you got quite literally one of the best linebacking corps in the country with Jack Campbell, Justin Jacobs. I mean, that's where the talent is of this team, and that's where they're really scary.
Man, the more we talk about this, the more that I remember last year's Iowa game where we absolutely handed to them.
I mean, Campbell was
Riley
all
Moss
over the field last year. They got a great secondary. The defense is going to be one of the best defenses in the country, I think. And paired with one of the worst offenses in the country, a very Nebraska 2009 situation here. Do you think we lose this then here in Iowa?
Yeah. That hurts.
I mean, I'm going to take us again in a devastatingly close loss, I think, again.
I just can't wait. Like, the second we win any of those games that we say, I will be so obnoxious for the whole year about it.
I know.
Better not let us win.
With that said, that puts our final predictions here. I came out at 7-5. The disgusting thing is that we're still not beating Minnesota, Iowa, or Wisconsin. We're in Frost year 5 with that prediction. And like, it doesn't leave me very happy, even though this is Frost. That would be Frost's best season yet. So that's what kind of gets tough.
Yeah, we're still not even in the top 3 in the Big Ten West. We're 1-4 against Minnesota, 0-5 against Iowa, 0-5 against Wisconsin. I have us the same way, where I have us at 5-7. Again, just even worse, finishing like 5th in the Big Ten West.
5-7 would finalize Frost's tenure here in Nebraska. 7-5, I don't really know what we're thinking here with Trev Alberts, but it seems like 7-5 would keep him around from an objective standpoint.
But the schedule is just so easy to get there. Like,
I think we'll talk about that in a future video.
Okay.
But
it stinks.
That is what's tough. I mean, the trap games again, Purdue and Rutgers are the huge games with Northwestern as well, just to kick off the season with the right tone. And then, what are the odds that we, lose one of the Northwestern, Rutgers, Purdue, or Illinois games versus what are the odds that we win, one of the Oklahoma, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa games? It's kind of like that 4, middle of the road Big Ten teams versus the 4 great teams. Can we steal one of them? Are we going to blow one of those games? I mean, you could argue that we won't be the favorite against Purdue, but Yeah. So those are the interesting scenarios for the season. What's the best case scenario versus worst case scenario?
2-10's worst case scenario. We beat Georgia Southern. We beat North Dakota and nobody else.
I mean, I would say we would beat one of them at least. My thing is 3-9 is worst case scenario. We would beat one of Northwestern, Illinois, Indiana. So. I mean, come on. Indiana, Rutgers. I mean, we would have to be one of those. I would say that's absolute worst case scenario.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, I think 8 wins is so possible if we can galvanize, if our offense looks good.
I mean, I say 9 wins is possible if everything hits. Like that's beating Minnesota. That's basically, the difference between 8 and 9 is beating Minnesota.
Yeah. Again, just Minnesota's looked so good every year.
Or Oklahoma.
Yeah, and that could be. Obviously, I would way rather beat Minnesota than Oklahoma. Because you just want to beat teams within your conference. And I think that's really how we should judge Frost. Not so much on the non-con games, but just on how he does inside the Big Ten. Because at the end of the day, the only way to get to conference championships, to get to national championships, is to win your conference. And we're fathoms, leagues, miles away from being anywhere close to that under Scott Frost.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the narratives that could potentially happen this season where we start off 7-1 heading into Minnesota, which is very possible. I mean, we could be 7-1 heading into Minnesota and finish 7-5, which is what which I predicted. That's my prediction was.
I mean, maybe this year is maybe this year is like the 2016-17 Mike Riley year where we win a ton of those games early in the season. We get ranked.
We win the games we should win.
Yeah, we win the games we should win. But I think that also would mean that we beat Minnesota and probably Iowa if we got to that point.
You think if we're 7-1 at that point, we're a reliable team. Our identity has shifted. We're not the chokers that we used to be with this new roster in here, new coaching staff, and then suddenly we convert on either Wisconsin, Iowa, or Minnesota.
I need Scott Frost in year 5 to beat a team in either Iowa or Wisconsin, a team we haven't beat.
I kind of feel that same way. So we'll have a whole video kind of on the expectations for Frost and some of those things moving forward. We'll also very likely be doing a Big Ten West predictions video, things along those lines as well. So be on the lookout for those videos. Check out our past videos on Depth Chart if you haven't already. And this was a long one. So thank you for sticking around. We appreciate you guys for hanging out with us. But as always, I'm Josh. That's Caleb. This has been Backseat Sports, and we will see you next time.
Go Big Red,
baby.